Welcome everyone who's joining us. We'll let you kind of fall in and settle in here with us. This will be recorded, so I'll kind of do like we do on social media, right? I'll wait till the room fills up a bit and then we'll kind of get going here. But I'm really excited about today. This is Fresh Check Day for ECU. Shout out to Campus Rec and Wellness. Shout out to the Center for Counseling Student Development and all of our campus partners across ECU that are come together to make this event such a great event for so many years now. My name is Jay Harris. I am the program coordinator for ECU's Collegiate Recovery Community, as well as alcohol and other drug staff counselor for the Center for Counseling and Student Development. And I just want to thank you all for joining us. This will be recorded and you can watch it for several days after today's live event. I won't be before you very long. We'll probably be in the room for about 30 to 45 minutes. There is some opportunities at the end to do a quiz for a drawing for door prizes and things of that nature, and we'll talk more about that as we go in. If you're watching this on a recorded loop, you can catch the information towards the end of this recording, and be sure to participate in the survey and the questionnaire at the end for your opportunity to win some ECU Collegiate Recovery Community swag, including t-shirts, stickers, the whole nine. It's a little goodie bag that we put together for you all. So before I take up any more of your time, we'll kind of jump right in. Allow me for a second to share my screen and we'll get moving. All right, some technical difficulties really quickly with the PowerPoint, but we will get to it in just a second. All right, let's get back to the front screen. So again, this is the Language Matters booth, an anti-stigma mental health campaign, a part of the 2020 Fresh Check Day hosted by the campus of ECU. We love to give a huge shout out to the Jordan Parker Foundation for making this all possible. Again, my name is Jay Harris, program coordinator for the ECU Collegiate Recovery Community, as well as alcohol and other drug staff counselor. I use he, him pronouns. So, because I know that we have a few folks in the room, and hopefully we'll be able to open it all up and towards the end for some questions. So what exactly is the ECU Collegiate Recovery Community? We are academic, social, and personal development supports for any student that's in recovery from alcohol and other drugs, seeking recovery from alcohol and other drugs, or the allies of those individuals. So maybe you're a family member or a friend, a loved one that you know in recovery, or maybe you're studying this, right? Maybe you're a alcohol and drug minor or a clinical counseling master's student or public health, social work, so many different fields that this really kind of intersects into. And maybe you're just showing up just to learn more about how to support your fellow peers in the midst of mental health and, the suicide crisis that we kind of find ourselves in the middle of right now on college campuses. Our ECU Collegiate Recovery Community has 2 weekly meetings. They're virtual all recovery meetings, mutual aid groups, similar to 12-step, but without this whole piece of actually being a 12-step anonymous meeting. These meetings are open to the general public. If you are a individual who lives in Greenville, Pitt County, who identifies as being a person in recovery, or you would like to explore your relationship with substances, try to figure out exactly, do I need additional help? Am I doing okay? This is kind of your place to kind of figure that out. And one thing about being in a virtual space is you don't have to be physically in Greenville to attend our new virtual all recovery meetings. And so we have individuals who have the capability to log in from anywhere in the world. And those meetings are held Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. So tonight at 7. And then again, Thursday afternoon at 12 noon. And those meetings are led by students who are in recovery, and basically built for students. As a recovery ally myself and the staff kind of advisor of the group, I don't attend those meetings. I really allow that to be the space there for the students to have their time without quote unquote big brother in the room. And so, the students really support one another in a lot of ways. And those meetings will get opportunity to show them and, opportunities for them to share with each other their hope and strength for recovery for themselves and for others. Being a part of our collegiate recovery community, whether you are a student in recovery or seeking recovery or an ally, there are opportunities for leadership. We have several different opportunities within the ECU collegiate recovery community for student leaders. But we also have Pirates for Recovery, which is a student organization that's been newly founded by a group of our allies and some of our students in recovery as well, who felt they needed more of a space to really kind of do their thing. Have T-shirts printed that were a little bit more cutting edge or edgier than just the basic ECU block logo as you see here on the bottom of the screen, and really just kind of allows students to get their word out in a way that makes most sense for students to speak to other students. Now, we do have our Stronger Selves Allies, which is an ally program, kind of like Safe Zone or Green Zone. Safe Zone is the ally training for the LGBTQI community, as well as Green Zone is the ally training for military personnel. And so we have our own training that we call our Stronger Selves Recovery Ally training. And so these are just many different ways for you to get engaged and get involved in the work that we're doing at ECU, but in the larger Eastern North Carolina community, and specifically Pitt County. So let's look at here. We're going to dive right into it. We have ESPN, NPR, TMZ, MTV, and CNN. What might these organizations have in common? Well, you might say, they're all media outlets, which is certainly true. They have their own individual piece, right? So ESPN obviously focuses a lot on sports, where NPR might be a little bit more political or looking at things from kind of that point of view. TMZ is more of kind of a tabloid type of media piece. CNN obviously reports the news. And then MTV used to actually show music, videos and things. They don't do that very much at all anymore. But they're still around. I love watching episodes and reruns of shows like Wildin' Out and all of that. But at one point they played a lot of music videos and kept you up to date on kind of what was happening in the news as far as musical entertainment and things of that nature. And so these outlets keep us pretty informed on a daily basis. But they also have some negative sides to them that we'll kind of jump into here next. So let's look at some of these breaking news headlines. Mac Miller's home swept clean of evidence. That's So Ravens alum Orlando Brown arrested again. Josh Gordon admits he would get drunk or do drugs before games. Is where that would continue on to say. Teen Mom OG alum Ryan Edwards checks into rehab again. Why Britney Spears' breakdown was even scarier than we thought. Wow. These are headlines that we see in our media and on our news regularly. I pulled all of these headlines from one of the websites that you saw earlier. It's just very interesting how they have attempted to really sensationalize some of the challenges that we're seeing here or talking about, right? For example, Mac Miller. Many of you may know him. If you're like me, you kind of came late to the game to the Mac Miller introduction, where I didn't actually get to know Mac Miller and his music until he did NPR's Tiny Desk, which is an interesting crossover there, right? Because NPR typically focuses on politics and kind of local legislator type news and information that you kind of need. But they've switched over now and do a lot of what MTV used to do in the past, which again, very interesting crossover there. But Mac Miller recently died of a substance use overdose, potentially heroin or fentanyl. But, I think if you look into the news of all of that, there were some other substances involved in that whole entire process. And we can talk more about what that looks like on another episode or another day. If you'd like to have more conversation about all of that, feel free to message me and we can talk more about, how many drug overdoses are classified as heroin or fentanyl, because that's kind of where we are right now with the opiate crisis. But it's the mixture of drugs truly that typically cause individuals to pass away or perish due to their substance use. But like I said, that's another conversation for another day, actually. But we have this headline here: his home being swept clean of evidence. And so this was essentially the headline that came out a week or two after Mac Miller's passing, where essentially when police and report, went in to do their investigation and autopsies and all of that, everything that kind of comes along with that, it says that the home was swept clean of all any evidence. So we know that Mac Miller was an individual who was open about his addiction and about his recovery, but had some woes there towards the end of his life. That's So Raven alum Orlando Brown has had a very interesting story here in the last few years of being a little eccentric at times, fabricating stories and just creating a lot of chaos around him and people connected to him. But here it is, he's arrested again, and this is the stories that the media really love to jump on. Josh Gordon, those of you who may know him, was a standout wide receiver in the NFL who had a significant history of substance use himself, but also was actively working towards recovery. But with that comes lots of different challenges. He had several ups and downs, and this headline comes out that he would get drunk or do drugs before games, and so on and so forth. The Teen Mom one I like to address because here it is. This individual is checking into a rehab facility, so obviously they're looking for help, or they have someone on their team that has encouraged them to go find help. And the fact that they actually reached out and went for that help, to be kind of shunned upon and say that they're in rehab again as if that's a negative, really, really rubs me the wrong way. I'm not sure how you feel about that. And then the infamous Britney Spears mental health breakdown that we all hear about, when she shaved her head and she's, pulled away in the ambulance, and we see all those images from TMZ and everything else. Then to hear the details of that story, and this headline comes out to say that her breakdown was even scarier than we thought. Like, what is going on with all this sensationalizing of who these people really are? And one thing I like to always address about this is, it's easy to sensationalize and to tabloid people's business when you have no personal connection to them, right? When they are celebrity, when they are other, it's easy to cast them out to the side and not really think about who these individuals are as people. Aside from the fact that they are mothers, they are fathers, they are family members, their sons, their daughters, like, they are still people in their own right by themselves. We don't have to couch someone's humanity in their other titles, right? Like, we are still a human being and whole person, separate from any other role or title that we have. I think people love to say, well, that's somebody's someone, or that was someone's mother or someone's brother. All of those things are true, but first and foremost, they are people and are human beings and should be treated as such. So, I dived way down into this really heavy, but what comes to mind when you read these headlines? I think this, goes right into a lot of what I just talked about. It's sensationalized, it's drama, it's clickbait, it's all these things that we talk about how much we hate it, but yet we feed right into it. And so, this really gets into the heart of where our conversation would go when we talk about language matters and what that truly means. So let's just look a little bit deeper into all of this conversation. How has the media shaped America's perception of substance use disorders? Let's look at movies. How many movies can you think of that glamorize, show images of, tear down? What are the movies that really put substance use and addiction on the forefront? I can think of movies like New Jack City. I can think of movies like Cheech and Chong, Basketball Diaries, Friday series, right, where they're smoking marijuana and cannabis throughout the entire movie, and everything's kind of centered around that. Harold and Kumar, the White Castle movies, all of these things, these are movies that highlight substance use in a lot of different lights. Usually in kind of a joking manner, secondhand. We're normalizing it, so therefore it's not that much of an issue, that type of thing, right? How about music? Can we think of any songs or artists that really, play this up? I think every genre is guilty of this. I don't think there is a genre outside of maybe more religious type music that doesn't doesn't glamorize or glorify alcohol and other drugs in some form or fashion. From hip hop to pop music, some songs that come to mind for me. Afro Man is one, just out of pure parody, I think, in a lot of ways, and comedy. Um, but other songs and things, Amy Winehouse is an artist that spoke a lot about addiction and just substances. You can't turn on the radio and not hear a song that's talking about alcohol and other drugs. The Weekend, Drake, the list goes on when it comes to a lot of this music and stuff that's out there. But I just really want you to focus and think about how the music we listen to influences the way we then think about addiction, substance use disorders, mental health, even, and then how we then internalize that or speak about it in our everyday life. And the reason this is important, this individual, Chiamanda Ngozi Adichie, she says this in her TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story. That is how you create a single story. You show up people as one thing and only as one thing over and over again, and that is what they become. Now, to put this in context, what Chiamanda Ngozi Adichie was speaking of was how her white American roommate in college thought of her as an African immigrant to to not ECU, but to America at a American college. And all the stories that her roommate had heard about Africa was about Africa being poor, desolate, not having resources, not being able to speak English, many different things. but all kind of creating this one picture of Africa being a not so great place to be, or a place that had very little to offer in a lot of ways. And honestly, the way that the media, whether it be music, news, movies, TV, paint, substance use disorders, and other mental health issues, is very much the same. That an individual who uses drugs, or the acronym we like to use is PWUD, people who use drugs, that these individuals have nothing to offer our society, that they are, they're other, they're not us, that they give nothing back to the society that they're draining. They're draining taxpayers' dollars. They are scum of the earth in a lot of ways. This is how people who use drugs have been kind of normalized in our society. And that's honestly just not true. Just not true at all. And I love this. J. Cole recently dropped an album. I say recently, but this is several years ago now. The KOD album, King on Drugs, Kids on Drugs, Kill Our Demons. This acronym had many different meanings to it. But this album, if you look at the album cover, had this very intentional asterisk that said this album is in no way intended to glorify addiction. In fact, the album itself looks at the narrative of how we talk about addiction, drugs, and mental health in our music. And it's really a call to action to his peers in the music industry to raise the bar, to not glamorize and glorify substance use and lean and doing mollies and all these things that you hear about in music. He really challenges his peers to do away with that music, to elevate our society and elevate the children and the kids who are listening to the music and looking up to these artists and saying, hey, it's okay to ask for help when you have a mental health challenge. This is one of my favorite albums, honestly, for that very reason. Not to mention that J. Cole is from North Carolina and happens to be one of my favorite artists. But when he dropped this album, it elevated J. Cole in my eyes and the level of respect that I have for him. And this is very important that we're having this conversation, because as I work with individuals who are in recovery from substance use, the public's perception of what it means to be in recovery is very negative. If I were to ask 100 people, when you hear the words recovery, as in this person is in recovery from addiction, what does recovery mean to you? And out of those 100 people, only 22 of those people will say that a person in recovery is free from addiction or no longer uses alcohol or other drugs. 62% of those individuals, or 62 of those individuals, would say that this person is trying to stop using alcohol or drugs. Whereas 8% would say, or 8 of those people would say, this person has been damaged by alcohol or drugs. And then another 3 people would say this person has a mental illness. So that's very, very interesting. When I do these trainings and we talk about language and why it matters, and we teach individuals in our recovery messaging training, which you can also find by reaching out to us with the ECU Collegiate Recovery community, is how to introduce yourself in a way that doesn't put up these guards for people, right? That almost 80% of individuals will look at you and say, oh, you're just trying to get off of drugs, or you've been damaged by drugs, or you have a mental illness. No. We're talking about something way more way more positive than that. That when a person is in recovery, they have access to a whole new life. That they have a hope, they have a future, that they have all the things that you would want for your young child when you find out that, you know, you and your significant other are having a child, adopting a child, all the hopes and dreams that you have for that little person um, become possible again for an individual once they find recovery in a lot of ways. So that's what we're talking about here. And I'll show this clip. Hopefully, it comes through on your end. The anonymous people, and the tagline for this documentary that I've learned about and watched many times at this point says recovery is out to change. Excuse me, recovery is out to change the addiction conversation from problems to solutions. Let's see if we can catch a clip of this really quickly here.
Whether we want to admit it or not, this is our life.
All right.